Okay, now we're starting our reflections on the Gospel of John, and Jim Owen is going to proclaim the Gospel for us, and we'll write down any phrases or images, any words that strike us as Jim proclaims. All yours, Jim. Be sure to unmute. Yeah.
Reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father loves me, so I also love you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. This is my commandment. Love one another as I love you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I no longer call you slaves, because a slave does not know what his master is doing. I called you friends because I have told you everything I have heard from the Father. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you, and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. This I command you, love one another."
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. So now be sure to unmute if you want to share any of the words or phrases that struck you, any of the images that came to you. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to start by giving the overall literary context of our passage. It's from John 15. So it's part of John 13 to 17, which is the Johannine Last Supper scene. The Last Supper follows the book of signs, John 2 to 11, from the wedding at Cana to the raising of Lazarus. So the Last Supper scene follows that, and it precedes the Johannine narrative of the glorification of Jesus. That is the lifting up, the glorification, which for John is the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus, John 18 to 20. The proximate literary context, it follows immediately the passage of the parable of the vine and the branches, which was for the preceding Sunday. The relationship of the branches to the vine is the basis of Christian love. As the Father loves me, so I also love you. The love from Jesus that disciples experience is not simply the affection of a good teacher for his students. The last time Brother Mike and I were talking about good teachers that we have experienced, and it's a powerful thing for students. But this is more than that. The love shown by Jesus is the incarnation of God's love, God's love made flesh. Remain in my love. This love is God's free gift. The disciple has done nothing to earn it. Toward the end, it says, "It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you." The words apply not only to the original disciples, they apply to all of us who find ourselves as Christians, whether we don't remember our baptism, we were infants when our parents brought us into this way of life, or whether there was some sudden change of life as we were adults. However it happened, we are Christians today. We're at this lecture, at this class today. We'll be at church on Sunday because God chose us. I remember when I was young on TV, they would sometimes say, attend the church or synagogue of your choice, this weekend. And America was religious enough at that time that you would hear things on secular television, attend the church or synagogue of your choice. The whole point of John here is, though, it's not really our choice. It might feel like our choice, but it's God who has chosen us. However, although it's God's choice, each disciple has a choice to make. The disciple, remain in my love. The disciple can remain in God's love or depart from it. And this has already been dramatized in John in the story of Judas. After Judas received the piece of bread, he immediately departed. And the narrator adds, it was night. Departing is leaving the light of the world for darkness. That's the terrible choice. If you keep my commandments, remaining in the love of God incarnate in Jesus, it has ethical consequences. Jesus incarnates the love of God, and disciples are called to incarnate his love in their relationships, in our relationships with one another. Then we get, this is my commandment, love one another as I have loved you. And this starts a frame which ends with, this I command you, love one another, which is the final sentence in our passage for the day. So that final part there is a separate literary unit framed by, this is my commandment, love one another. This I command you, love one another. And what is within the frame explicates this theme and the specifics of, as I have loved you. As the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep, so now Jesus is going to lay down his life for his friends. The relationship of disciples among each other is because all of us have a friend in common, namely that friend Jesus. Fuller notes that the Quakers, who are, their official name is the Society of Friends, they bear witness to this truth, and that such witness is a judgment on our ecclesiasticism, on our preoccupation with complicated church structures. The simple message is a call to pay attention to the basics. And I'm going to end with just a saying. It's one of my favorite sayings from Dorothy Day about love. And she got it from a Russian author. It might have been Tolstoy or it might have been Dostoevsky, but the saying that she used to tell people at her Catholic worker houses, where they were often taking care of drunks and people on drugs who were puking all over the place and fouling their beds. She said, love in reality is a harsh and dreadful thing compared to love in our dreams. Love in our dreams is they all live happily ever after. We live happily ever after. But love in reality is a harsh and dreadful thing compared to love in our dreams. I'll end with that. So questions, comments, or observations from your experience of the tradition that you would like to throw in at this point?
Father, I'm sure you realize it, but that last part you mentioned was not in the notes.
I know, I just,
Okay.
I wrote it in by hand.
Okay, thank you. Thought I might have missed something there.
I'll put it in the final version. Yeah,
Thank you.
I correct the typos and put in a few of my ad libs.
I kept looking for it. Where is that? Very important piece of information there. I couldn't find it.
Other questions or comments or observations? You know, some of our favorite saints, they're not as perfectly as Jesus, but they're all incarnations of God's love. Thinking of Francis, St. Francis of Assisi, and Mother Teresa, and Dorothy Day. These are the people. They speak to our better angel. They speak to our compassion for those less fortunate than we are. They remind us, you know, we human beings. I saw this nova on violence, and it's how a certain amount of violence is wired into us because it's wired into our DNA, and especially if you have a Y chromosome, if you're a male, violence in nature, and especially among males is. But the good news is that just looking at it from a scientific point of view, not from even a faith aspect, is that we also have the capacity for compassion, and these saints, when we get xenophobic and we're afraid of foreigners, or we're afraid of those who don't look like us, they call us, they speak to our better angels and remind us of the other possibilities that we have. And so that reminds me of what that passage that Marie read about. Yes, as we Christians, we find it specifically manifested in Jesus Christ, but this is the most potent example of what God does everywhere in creation. That Jesus isn't just a fluke, as it were. This is the way our God acts. And when the fathers of the church saw similarities to Christianity and other religions, either in what they taught or the way that their leaders had acted, there were two responses. One response was, these similarities are the work of the devil, and they were put there by the devil in these other religions so that Christians would be led astray. These were, but the other interpretation, which goes all the way back to the 2nd century, I think it was Justin the Apologist, called these logoi spermatikoi, seeds of the word. These similarities to Christianity and other religions, they were put there not by the devil, they were put there by God, so that when the fullness of Christianity reached them, they would see it because of the truth that they already experienced in their own religions. My own theology is more congenial to the second interpretation than the first, but both are found in our tradition, and you can find both responses alive and well in the church today, as far as Catholic relations to other denominations or to other religions. Since Vatican II, our official teaching has been more toward the second approach, the logos spermatikoi, seeds of the words. But not everyone's happy with the official teaching. Okay, let me take us through the RSV of the passage. Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love." Reminds me of the song, "Abide with Me." "If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because a servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another." So, any final observations on good news or challenges or anything else that anyone wants to share before we wrap up?
But Father, on the surface reading of that, it sounds very simple, but it's not. It's really difficult to love some people. Very difficult.
You're reminding me of a little ditty by John Powell. When I was a young priest, he had some popular books out, and I think I even heard it on a tape, a cassette tape that he made. To live above with the saints we love, that is true glory. To live below with the saints we know, that's another story. I remember when I was a deacon before I was ordained a priest. I realized that if I continued on and became a priest, that I would experience more grief in my life from good people than from the wicked. I had been working as a deacon with the catechist who was preparing the children at the cathedral in Alexandria for First Communion. And the children were going to sing a song at their First Communion. It was the High Mass. We're going to sing a song at communion. And the choir director said, the 10:30 Mass is our Mass. I said, well, sure, you're going to do everything else, but the children, we're going to have them sing a song at communion. He said, the 10:30 Mass is our Mass. I said, well, can't the children sing? Yes, the children are welcome to sing with the choir, and we'll sing their song. I said, but y'all are all good singers, and they're just little kids. You're going to drown them out. The 10:30 Mass is our Mass. And the pastor supported the choir leader, and it was January, and it was cold, and it was raining sleet. And I went out and I walked away from the cathedral for 7 miles in sleet before I turned around and started back. And when I got back, I was still angry. Yes, to live below with the saints we know, often it's very difficult. I'm sure any of you who work for the church have your own horror stories.
I thought you were going to say something like, half these kids had to walk 7 miles to come to church for this. In the sleet and snow.
And I was the deacon, and I remember thinking, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to be ordained in a couple of months if this is what I'm going to experience working for this company?
What we were given is not exactly what we thought we would be given.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, we'll end our conversation there. I'm going to push the stop recording.